Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Private Talks with Anthony Taylor. We're going to have a insightful conversation. For those that are new to the channel, we make mental health conversations and content that's going to be beneficial to your personal development, just to your well-being, right? But in today's conversation, we're going to be talking about strong people still need help too, right? We got to take in consideration that we can't take everything, pile it on ourselves, act as if that, you know what I mean, we some superheroes, right? It's good to help people, but we also have to have limitations. We also got to have boundaries. We also got to know what our energy levels are, right? So strong people often put themselves in a situation where they're the strong one, right? They learn how to carry everything and they don't know when to put things down, right? So I think that some of us are in environments where we have a survival mindset. We just been in positions where we have to figure things out, and it put us in a situation where we have that strength, we have that ability, and we know how to help other people, right? But like I said, we need to learn how to ask for help, and we need to know our limitations, right? So I want to be able to normalize something, right? So my first key point is going to be talking about, dependable people. They are quiet and they struggle in silence, right? So you may often find yourself in a situation where people are always turning to you. You often figure these things out, right? And over time, you don't realize it, but you're taking on, like I said, that responsibility, and you're not taking consideration about what about you? Do you need any help, right? Do you need any support, right? We gotta take in consideration that we don't have the answers. We're not made to be perfect. We're made to improve. But like I said, we need to be more intuitive. We gotta know what's really going on with ourselves, right? So there's nothing wrong about leaning on to other people, seeking that support. The same way people are leaning on you for that support, you gotta be able to lean on someone else for support, right? You can't be trapped in a corner, you know what I mean, in the back of the back, right? And also at the same time, too, closed mouths don't get what? They don't get fed. No one is able to read your mind to know what's going on with you. So it's really important for you to advocate for yourself and seek that support, right? When it comes to that psychoeducation, to keep us grounded, to give us some more insight and information, right? First key point, I want to take into consideration that you're not meant to handle everything alone, like I mentioned before, right? So support is part of how we function as human beings. We got to interact with each other, right? So it's good to have solitude. It's good to know what's going on and be intuitive with yourself, right? And get away from distractions, right? But too much of that is not good for your wellness, right? So it's really important for us to interact with each other and develop that connection, develop that bond, develop that support, right? So holding everything in, the weight does not disappear, right? And over time, it gets heavier and it gets heavier and it's heavier, right? So how many blocks, how many bags, how many, you know what I mean? Whatever analogy you want to put in your head, are you going to hold within yourself, right? At a certain time, like I said, it's going to get heavier and heavier. And when it comes to mental health, I don't want to see you tore from the floor up. I don't want to see you down bad, right? And I don't want to see all these things turn into dysfunction into your reality, into your world. So I really want to take consideration that we got to be able to reduce some of the stress, right? Have some coping skills, deep breathing, right? Things that you like to enjoy to boost your mood, make you feel better, right? But we also need to take in consideration that we need some support, whether it's professional, you seek a therapist, social worker, someone at your school, someone around you, right? You're talking to a friend, right? But we got to be able to talk, you know what I mean, and get this out of our system, right, in a healthy way. So I also want us to know as well that even the most capable people have their limits too, that deserve that respect too. So we got to be able to take that in consideration. This goes across the board, whether you're a celebrity, whether you feel me, you in the middle class, right? It doesn't really matter. Or, the poverty threshold, wherever you find yourself. At the end of the day, we also got to just take in consideration that we need to know our limits. We got to know what we can do, right? Strength isn't about, needing help all the time, right? It's not about, like, trying to be this individual, always reaching out. You feel like, you're a burden. It's about, like I said, responding with honesty. You got to be able to be real to yourself, right? And like I said, closed mouths don't get fed. I do not want to see you to be in a situation where you're struggling in silence and nobody knows what's going on with you, right? It's very important for you guys to be able to use these independent skills so that you guys get the results that you deserve, that you need, right? When it comes to some practical reframing in regards to how we're able to improve our mindset and how we're able to see strength differently, right, is, letting people support you, right? It's not a weakness. This is trust. You're going to be able to see people how they really are. It's like, when you need help, when you're down bad, right, you're going to really be able to see, and it's going to reveal people, right, when you do need that support, right? So allow yourself to, get outside of your comfort zone and develop this trust within yourself and develop that support, right? And when it comes to professionals, I want to be able to address as well is that you're having conversations that are in conducive environments, right? You're able to, you're in a safe space, right? So whatever you're talking about in that room stays in that room, right? And they're going to be able to talk about the limitations, et cetera, et cetera. But these are people that you could really talk to. They're going to build with you and keep that rapport down. You have someone that's actually taking notes and writing things down into detail, right? So the next time you have a conversation with them, they have all these different things. Meanwhile, you're having a conversation with a casual person, they may not be able to remember or keep, certain criteria that, you're talking about. So it's really important, like I said, to reach out to a professional, because they're really going to be able to make that difference for you. You know what I mean? In addition to that as well, I want to be able to talk about, you are still reliable and capable of what you share, right? You still got that control, you still got that ability, so don't get it twisted. But at the same time too, is like reaching out for that support is the focal point, right? So strength looks differently in different ways. It doesn't have to, like I said, you don't got to carry this load, and it's not about just like adding on that stress and acting that you gotta be this person where you're fine, and you gotta, you know what I mean, like, you don't gotta pretend. Be who you are, be real to yourself, right? And take that in consideration. Like I said, as human beings, we're supposed to interact, we're supposed to be able to get the support, right? So being strong doesn't mean that you gotta take everything alone. It means that you need to know your limitations, right? You gotta know what's beneficial for you. Right, so some micro action, what can we do immediately, right? So when we know better, we tend to do better, right? So I really want us to think about one of the things that is going on in your world in regards to, what have you been holding down, right? What have you been holding inside? What are some of the bricks, or the bags, the analogy that we used earlier, in regards to what are some things that you're holding down, what's holding you back, right? Ask yourself, right, who is somebody that you're able to feel safe enough to be able to, implement a little small aspect of what you got going on, right? What's going on with you, right? Something small, like I said, little things make the difference. I think it's really important for us to take that in consideration. We got to start somewhere, right? But I want us to, like I said, think about some of these things. When we are able to, have critical thinking, utilize that brain, right, we're able to really make some conscientious decisions that can be beneficial for us, right? So it's about starting small, right? So we have to have that conversation with ourselves, that little message, right? So who is someone we're able to use for support, right? Whether it's a mentor, whether it's a friend, whether it's family, whether it's, right, a professional, right? Who are we able to have this conversation with? Got to be able to seek that support, right? It really makes a difference. And by you seeking that support, you're going to be able to get the results or get some type of solution for whatever the circumstances, right? So you deserve that support. You don't deserve to be sitting here being tore up from the floor up, acting as if that you got to take all these things and, present yourself in a way where you know it all, you know what I mean? And you down bad when you don't, you feel me? When people can't even read you, right? I think it's just really important for us to take it in consideration, because it's not your responsibility to take on everybody else's situation, but when it comes to you, you're deprived, right? So I really want us, like I said, have that critical thinking, right? And, you can be strong, capable, and you can still be able to be that loving, helping person, but you also got to love yourself by making sure your needs are getting met and you're supporting yourself throughout every stage of your life, right? If you found the video beneficial, give it a thumbs up, share if possible. See you on the next one.